And so what I'm trying to do is everything I see is where somebody said, oh yeah, I saw one. Okay, I've now spent several months looking and I haven't seen one. And I haven't seen their feathers and I haven't seen abandoned nests. So I'm hoping they're there, but that's all it is. Now, how many, do you see the birds here? Okay, they're there, I promise. Look at the ice edge. And so you have one away from the ice edge here. You have one on the ice edge. You have another one on the ice edge. And David said that's a bird up there too, but I don't agree with him on that. That's how you find them. Because the temperature that day was 76. I've got 20-some weather stations set up in different places. And we had one day it was 84. Any birds that were out died. They don't make it at 84 degrees.
And that's abnormally high?
That's very abnormally high for there. But most of the places we haven't had stations, and so we don't have a long-term cover. And wolverines and grizzly bears tear your stations up, and you really don't play with them. And so it's hard. Like we set motion cameras out, and we didn't get anything. Every camera had been knocked over by something. And so we screwed the cameras down 2 years ago, and they were pulled out of the ground and thrown down the slope by something. And so you don't really play with stuff there. And so I'm going back this year in June, and I'm going to place cameras again, hopefully camouflaged. I don't know. You know, it's getting kind of expensive. Well, yeah, well, we thought that, but what we want to do is we have to have them where we're actually studying the birds. And so whatever it was, we didn't get any pictures of whatever it was. And so we're hoping to see if there's a return cycle on the birds with the eyes, because you just can't be there all the time. So they're less well adapted to high temperatures, we know that. They get high level of heat stress above 70 degrees. And the heat stress becomes a mortality effect always above 80. And so what we're seeing now is that these are studies that have been going on that David has done before me. And so what we see is we're losing habitat because the tree line is moving up. And that's just measurable. You can just see where the trees are growing because of current warmer temperatures. And maybe this is just a trend, and it happens all the time over thousands of years. But if it's because of energy in the system, it may be permanent. And these animals don't do well in that. And there's higher winter temperatures. Now, that's being almost a weird statement of a higher winter temperature. So normally it's 45 below zero for a month and a half, so now it's only 40. Okay, that's still really cold, and that's cold enough for these. But it might make less of what we call a search regime for like wolverines. Wolverines eat these birds. Prairie falcons eat these birds. And so the things that eat them might, because the tree line is moving up, we may be losing their habitat space. It's getting smaller. And exposed space, and I'm right at the tree line here. That day, the temperature, I carry a weather station in my backpack. I'm at the tree line, and it's 75 degrees. And so later in the summer, at the tree line was 84, something like 15 days in a row. And so this is the tree line. You have to look in the snow. The slopes are fairly steep. Here's two pictures taken 1932, 1988. Why don't I have a more recent one? You don't need one. There's nothing there. And so here's the problem in glacier, is the glaciers are melting away pretty rapidly. They were already fragile because they're not tall mountains, 8,000, 9,000 feet. And so most of the glaciers are gone. And here's this is our highest population study area. The perennial snow in 2005 from a satellite image is the orange. The white is the snow in 1995. It's now less than that. It's almost not measurable. I just don't have a good satellite image of that space. Logan Pass, you can walk up there on a boardwalk. It's the first hike everybody does that's never been to Glacier, often going to the Sun Road. We still have birds there, but the population's down 90%. The flocks have moved, they're moving up into steeper and steeper because the snow is in steeper and steeper environments. And so the flocks are moving from the environment, the red was where we used to have snow, and the blue is where we have snow now. And so this is 2009 and 2010. We didn't find any in 2 of our big places last year. And so that was, but we don't know that they haven't moved the other side of the mountain. And so here's what we're seeing, just real quick, because I didn't want to put a lot of this in, I took a lot of this out. What we're seeing is they're farther from water, they're farther from snow, the slopes are getting steeper, and the water in the soil is higher, and yet there's less plants because that's where ice permanently was a cover, and now it's gone. There hasn't been time for the plants to grow back. So they're more exposed, and we think things are eating them. So here's where you normally see them. And by August, that snow patch was completely gone. That was 2 years ago. And so, you know, they're never more than a few meters from snow, and when there's no snow, they die if it's high temperature. Now, move, adapt, or decline. They're doing all of them. That they don't, this is a non-migrational bird. Now, other things there, that big mammals just moved to the snow. The hoary marmot is actually adapting to a point that it's doing better now without snow, and their populations are going up. 95% of all the pikas are dead. They apparently don't have a phenology that's going to allow them to change much. They're as cute as anything, by the way. They chip. They go, choo, 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 when you walk around, except you don't hear it anymore in Glacier. Now, I want to talk about one they used as the child of the climate change. Adelie penguins. Ross ice shelf in Antarctica. We got all kinds of scientists there. They've been there since, I don't know, I guess the early expeditions killed a lot of people, but they've been there since at least the 30s. And they've been studying them, and their populations are dropping way off. And they were saying, oh, it's climate change, it's climate change, it's climate change. And this article came out. I actually received the article about 10 days ago. So this is about as fresh scientifically as you can get. Okay, so when is it good? Thought to be in real trouble. All the studies were in one area. I mean, it was 1,000 miles long, but it was still just one area. And they were using this species to describe climate problems on penguins. Not true at all. Not true at all. They didn't know enough. You have to really, 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 really know a species. So they did a whole bunch of satellite work, and they actually threw some real money at it. And they found 53% more birds than they thought existed. And they've measured some of the colonies using both satellite, ship, and other data. And any place you see a solid black line, the colonies are growing like crazy. And so it could be they just moved. You know, we actually don't know exactly what happened, but look at the date. It was published October 2014. I actually received the thing in the mail, I don't know, 10 days ago, something like that. This new population data now, when you finally get enough data, you can actually do some science. Because the problem we have, this is a hard place to work. Glacier is a hard place to work. I'm 60, almost 60, I'll be 67 in January. I'm getting to where doing vertical climbs really beats me up, okay? And there's only, in Glacier National Park, there's only 2 of us doing the work. And it's a huge place. And I'm trying to get to the Arctic Ocean and do work, and I'm trying to do the stuff in New Mexico. So we're actually trying to find out if it's doing that. But look at this. This new population data, now we can maybe do something. But they just figured this out this year. So let's wait another 50 years to see what's going on. And then here's another doing better, the great tit in Europe. They really studied it, like eBird. I don't know if you ever even heard of eBird. You can go online and sign up for eBird and report the birds that are at your feeders, as long as you know the name of the bird. Okay? They have something like 300,000 people doing this in North America now. We're actually starting to find out stuff about birds, like where they are. It doesn't help if it's somebody measuring them on a campus. We have people measuring them in their yards all over the place. My wife and I are eBirders. Any place we go, we count the birds, we turn it in. We're just a point, another dot on the map. But there are now millions of dots for birds. In Europe, they do the same thing. They thought this bird was in trouble. Apparently, it's just moved a little bit. The populations are doing very well. And so what do we know? They could be, I like the yellow. Birds appear to be our canaries in the coal mine, giving us insights. Notice I said appear. We're not sure, because we don't know enough about birds themselves. These little dinosaurs are just awesome, but we don't know much about them. Now, can we expect more climate variation in the future? Sure. We're putting more energy in the system. As a geologist, that's what you actually really studied. So the first 22 years of my life, of my professional life, what you were interested in was energy and systems. And that made studying comparative anatomy, especially in avian species, and climate easy, because I was already used to studying variation caused by energy insertion. And so what do we know? We expect more change. The largest tornado ever measured occurred in, I think it was Oklahoma last year, killed 24 people, destroyed a level 1 tornado shelter. We don't make them any better than that. The biggest Arctic hurricane ever occurred 3 weeks ago. It's what's giving us this cold weather. The largest Pacific hurricane ever occurred this year. But in the Atlantic, we haven't had many hurricanes since the Sandy and those ones killed all the people in New Orleans and the other places. But what I'm saying is our climate is becoming more variable because there seems to be more energy in the system. And you can actually prepare for that, but you have to act like you want to prepare. But we also have to study it like we know what we're studying. So I'm not trying to be negative or positive on this. I just tend to have this big red flag when somebody says, we know everything there is to know about this species and it's being affected by climate. And I think that humans are a big hunk of the cause, but I don't know that we have enough data. And then here's what we do notice. Pelagic birds in the northern hemisphere, like puffins, seem to be doing worse. Non-migratory birds, white-tailed ptarmigan, have real problems because their local environment is changing. They don't migrate. Now, the next one is, in the Arctic, we're seeing anywhere from 2 to 11 degrees increase in temperature pretty annually. And it's happened in the past, but not within the last 1,000 years or so. And we're expecting the whole Arctic change to be 5 to 8 degrees, and it may have already occurred. Tropical areas, where I worked in Africa, I brought the chapter. I didn't know how to stick it in here. Our temperature went down, and our rainfall went up in a variation. And so there was more clouds. It was cloudier the last 10 years where I worked in Central Africa than it was before. And so what causes that? Well, more energy causes more evaporation. Okay, and that's basically it. These are just my acknowledgments, who I got stuff from. All the big bird groups let me use their stuff for free, so I should say that. So eBird, Bird Handbook of the World, Cornell University, I get to use all their stuff, which is really cool, as long as I say, hey, thank you, Cornell University, okay? And oh, well, thanks. This was fun. And yes, I'll be back playing with marine invertebrates probably in April.